in the eye of an international storm because of her belligerence and her wolf warrior diplomacy. But in a post-COVID era, what has become more important is China's military diplomacy, a key component of Beijing's overall foreign policy. While we discuss how China has faltered and been snubbed by many countries, what is important to note over here is that she remains unfazed in her pursuit to become the hegemon in a shifting world order. The recently published Pentagon's annual military China report spells out Beijing's expansionist agenda. According to the report, China is seeking to establish a more robust overseas logistics and basing infrastructure to allow the PLA to project and sustain military power at greater distances. That would both interfere with US military operations and support offensive operations against the United States. But what does the Pentagon say about how the Chinese are doing it? The report points to some strategic moves by China in the name of cooperation and many others in the name of humanitarian assistance. The Pentagon report suggests the Chinese officials assert that military logistics facilities like its Djibouti base will be used to provide international assistance like support to the United Nations operations while securing China's lines of communication, citizens and assets abroad. China experts in India feel that this could be cause for major worry for India since after establishing the Djibouti naval base, China is now considering expanding further in the Indian Ocean and Indo-Pacific regions. There are reports that China has considered Myanmar, Thailand, Singapore, Indonesia, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, United Arab Emirates, Kenya, Seychelles, Tanzania, Angola and Tajikistan as locations for PLA military logistics facilities. While Pakistan is an obvious choice, for New Delhi the worry would be Sri Lanka and Myanmar, two countries that India would like to maintain an area of influence in, where China has been investing heavily economically. But everything is not going the China way. In the past week alone, there has been a fair amount of pushback internationally of Beijing. From Australia to America, Germany to the Czech Republic, China faced much heat over her actions in Hong Kong, Tibet, Taiwan and in Xinjiang. German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas, during a joint press conference with his Chinese counterpart, indicated that Germany has pushed for China to address international concerns regarding how it treated its own citizens. The Chinese foreign minister was on a tour of European nations in what is being seen as an image-building exercise. The German foreign minister's statement, though couched in diplomatic terms, is being read as a snub.
Was die Uiguren betrifft,
regarding Uyghurs, they too were on our agenda today, and here too I repeated that we would certainly welcome it if China would consider the international community's concerns and would agree to allow access to the camps to an independent monitoring mission of the United Nations. I heard a readiness here.
China has always been touchy about any international reactions to issues related to China's internal affairs, particularly sensitive issues regarding Taiwan, Tibet, Xinjiang and Hong Kong. Chinese prickliness manifested itself when it came to be known that the Czech Republic Senate leader Milo Vystrčil was planning to visit Taiwan, a move China sees as granting recognition to Taiwan as a nation.
Whoever challenges the One China principle is making himself the enemy of the 1.4 billion Chinese people and the abuse of international confidence. The Chinese government and people will never sit idly and let it go to the blatant provocation by the Czech Senate President and the anti-China forces behind him. We will make him pay heavy prices for this short-sighted behavior and political speculation.
In response, the mayor of Prague lambasted Wang Yi, saying he should immediately apologize for crossing the line of acceptable diplomatic norms. The mayor posted his letter to the Chinese foreign minister on his Facebook account, where he called the Chinese Foreign Office unmannered, rude clowns.
However, I think that the personal threats against President of the Senate, Miloš Vystrčil, about the heavy price he has to pay they're completely unacceptable, and I'm very glad that there are other European countries who also feel it the same way.
Taiwan, meanwhile, seems to have found new confidence to take on the People's Republic of China. Ending years of being confused for PRC, the Republic of China, or Taiwan, has redesigned its passport, removing the large English words Republic of China to Taiwan. The name in Chinese characters, however, remains unchanged.
你说的就是台湾公布所谓新版护照封面的问题哈，我想啊，可能其实你也很清楚，不管台湾民进党当局呢搞什么小动作，台湾是中国不可分割的一部分，这个事实是不会改变的。
While India and the US have banned Chinese apps and put Chinese companies on their watch list, there seems to be a global coalition building against China. An informal alliance of nations like US, Germany, UK, Japan, Australia, Canada, Sweden, Norway, as well as members of the European Union who are joining hands to thwart China's strategic ambitions. And China is retaliating in its own way. Canada saw two of its citizens, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, detained without trial following the arrest of a Chinese Huawei Technologies company executive in Canada. Norway saw trade relations with China derailed for 6 years and salmon exports plummet after Chinese dissident was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Australia's efforts to hold China accountable led to new tariffs on Australian barley and ban on some meats. On Spotlight this time is Dr. Lobsang Sangay, who is the head of the Tibetan government in exile, or the president of the Central Tibetan Administration. While we discussed China's military diplomacy, a key issue that Beijing has to deal with is the issue of Tibet. Chinese President Xi Jinping's call to Sinicize Tibet and create an impregnable fortress around it is a talking point across the globe. Let's listen to Dr. Lobsang Sangay and what he has to say on how China is dealing with Tibet. Joining me is the president of the Central Tibetan Administration, that's the government in exile in India, Dr. Lobsang Sangay. Many thanks for joining us here on India Today, Dr. Sangay. The fact that Chinese military diplomacy has become more aggressive now than ever, how does Tibet play out for China in its foreign policy and military diplomacy?
Tibet is very important, you know. First of all, Tibet it's a huge country. The landmass is 2/3 the size of India, and it touches Central Asia, South Asia, and a bit of Southeast Asia as well, and all the way to China. So physically, it's huge. And recently, Chinese president and foreign minister, they have also said, you know, that stability and security of China is dependent on stability and security of Tibet. And hence, they must beef up the, you know, border areas. And they have said we must tackle the separatist group in Tibet. So clearly, the landmass and Chinese president himself saying so makes it very clear that Tibet is very important. And historically, India and Tibet had 3,488 long, kilometers. So there was not even a single land border between China and India. It was always between India and Tibet. So after Tibet was lost, Chinese troops moved into Tibet, now all over the border of India and the Five Fingers, including Bhutan and Nepal.
Foreign Minister Wang Yi's visit to Tibet in itself was unprecedented, Dr. Sangay.
Absolutely. If Tibet is simply a domestic affair, then the foreign minister should not be traveling. The fact that he went there shows that Tibet is internationally very significant from foreign policy point of view. Is so important, and with the recent, Galwan Valley tragic incident, the fact that the foreign minister of China had to go to Tibet and persuade or convince or brainwash or pressure Communist Party officials, including Tibetans, to do or what not to do, especially to say what not to say when it comes to Tibet issue in the context of foreign affairs is huge. So clearly, you know, the Chinese president spoke in Beijing about Tibet, mentioning border, highlighting border is very important. And the fact the foreign minister was there in Tibet recently clearly sends a message to all over the world, particularly to Asia and South Asia.
The fact that all of international community, major countries are now raising concerns with regard to Tibet. Tibet certainly has become an important foreign policy toolkit, if for China, then for the world as well. The US Congress, US Senate, Australia, European Union, you name it, are now raising the issue and calling out for and coming out for the cause of Tibet.
Definitely. You know, European Parliament debated about Tibet. Just recently, you know, just 2 days ago, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called on China to have dialogue with the envoys of the Dalai Lama and to respect human rights of the Tibetan people. I mean, just 2 days ago, you know. So you can clearly see, if you look at Australia or Japan or you know, any country all over the world, they're suddenly realizing that what Tibetans have been saying for the last 60 years, our country was occupied. We are under repression. But what we have been saying in various capitals around the world is, what happened to us happened. Now it's happening to you. Suddenly they felt that, you know, when I said at first, they didn't believe. They said, okay, you know, Tibet was occupied, Tibetans are repressed, it's understandable, but how is it happening to us? And I said, they are coming to your country. They are co-opting your ministers. They are influencing your business people. That's how they're coming in. Now, suddenly the whole world is realizing that what happened to Tibet is happening all over the world, and they all must learn from Tibet.
This is one of the worst standoff that we've seen between India and China. Galwan Valley got violent, and now we are seeing a pushback by India, acquiring tops which were traditionally held by Chinese. There is a very clear signal and message that India is putting forth to the Chinese that they are not going to let go of this entire area. And in that, report suggests that Tibetans, or for that matter, the Establishment 22, which is the Vikas Regiment, played a very important role. Is there anything that you'd like to share on the role that Tibetans play in this entire region and as part of the security forces?
Well, what you said is what I read in the news. So clearly, I think Chinese, you know, military is, from what we were told initially, that, you know, they were just coming to the border areas. It's not true. Not only they have, you know, intrusion is taking place, but they have taken over, you know, several strategic, you know, spots. Places in various parts of Ladakh, and possibly they are planning to do in other parts of the Indian border as well. So yes, Indian Army should be vigilant and make sure that, you know, the Indian territory is protected. So, you know, I always said you should always say Indo-Tibet border. Once you say Indo-China border, you are validating their presence at the border, because once you say, why are you here? Chinese soldiers, you say it's China border, and then I'm here, right? So it's Indo-Tibet borders. Any kind of incursions, you know, should be, yes, you know, protested, and definitely, you know, non-violently possible pushback.
Right. On that note, Dr. Sangye, many thanks for joining us here in India Today. Slipping into a short break. On the other side of the break, we'll discuss Mark Zuckerberg. Welcome back to World Today. Now, Facebook is one of the most important parts of our lives. It's almost impossible to stay away from it. It unites old friends and gives voice to one and all. It was in the year 2010, during the Arab Spring Revolution, that many were made aware of their social media empowerment through Facebook. But today, Facebook is facing criticism across the world for its lack of accountability and transparency. Here's a report on how Mark Zuckerberg is facing trouble and how he and his team are handling it.
It has a window into the minds of 2.5 billion users. In numbers, that is 1 in every 3 humans alive. It has a market value of close to $800 billion that is comparable to the GDP of a country like Turkey and more than those of countries like Austria and Belgium. Facebook, the social media phenomenon, stands at the forefront of the digital revolution. It brought the power of free speech to every individual user. It gave every voice the right to broadcast opinion. It made every user a Shakespeare or a Tarantino that they chose to be, beyond the rules of any land, outside the reach of community laws, and unfettered by any sense of forced morality. Facebook, like other such social media platforms, wove dreams of a free universe that could only be limited by its own restrictions. But now, there's a pushback from liberal democracies around the world. In India, Facebook has been accused of favoring the ruling BJP, but the BJP claims that reality is the other way round. The BJP claimed that Facebook India's managing director used to work with the Planning Commission under the UPA and was linked to the Congress party. Union IT Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad wrote to Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg saying that senior Facebook employees are on record abusing Prime Minister Narendra Modi and senior cabinet ministers.
कांग्रेस पार्टी बार बार ये कोशिश कर रही है कि भाई सोशल मीडिया के माध्यम से बीजेपी आगे बढ़ रही है। नरेंद्र मोदी जी की इमेज बहुत ही तगड़ी बन रही है। ये दुख उनको है, ये गुस्सा उनको है और इसीलिए फेसबुक पर अटैक कर रहे हैं। शशि थरूर के नेतृत्व में अगर मीटिंग हो भी गई होगी तो उसका हमको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है और हम हमारा काम करते रहेंगे। फेसबुक में हमको पब्लिसिटी मिलती रहेगी।
एक एजेंसी सोशल मीडिया का माध्यम से यहाँ की राजनीति में दखलंदाजी कर रही है, जो कि घोर आपत्तिजनक है। इसलिए ज्वाइंट पार्लियामेंट्री कमेटी गठित की जाए, उसकी जांच की जाए और इनके खिलाफ कार्रवाई की जाए और तब तक ये जांच पूरी ना हो जाए तो वर्तमान फेसबुक का इंडिया एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन है, टीम है, उसको हटाया जाए, उसको बदला जाए।
All this uproar over Facebook began when a news report was published by Wall Street Journal that revealed that political opportunism was at play by employees of Facebook India in pushing the ruling Saffron Party to power in 2014 and 2019 by allegedly ignoring hate speeches made by BJP politicians.
On 2nd September, Facebook India head appeared before a joint parliamentary standing panel on IT. Amid heated exchanges by lawmakers, Facebook India head Geeta Mohan was given a detailed questionnaire and he has to respond in 7 days. Facebook, in what seemed to be a much delayed reaction, on 3rd of September announced that they had blocked BJP leader T. Raja Singh's account. T. Raja was one of those BJP leaders whose posts had not been censored by FB even when they were called out as targeted hate content. The social media giant issued a statement in which they reiterated to remain neutral and transparent. While in India, Facebook's transparency and neutrality were being questioned, in neighboring Pakistan, the social media giant was taking preemptive action. On 31st of August, it took down what it said was a network of fake accounts and pages. These were said to have been spreading malicious propaganda that Facebook attributed to individuals in Pakistan. The social media giant is still embroiled in legal battles in the US for allegedly favoring the ruling organizations against voices of dissent. In April 2018, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg was grilled by US lawmakers over free speech versus hate speech.
Can you define hate speech?
Senator, I think that this is a really hard question. And I think it's one of the reasons why we struggle with it. There are certain definitions that we have around, calling for violence or.
Let's just agree on that.
2 years later, when the US was polarized on Black Lives Matter protests, Facebook once again came in for criticism for its handling of misinformation and hate speech. In a bid to correct perceptions, the company says they have taken several measures to ensure fairness.
Facebook acts faster and removes a greater percentage of the hate speech on our services than other major internet platforms, including YouTube and Twitter. We're able to identify almost 90% of the hate speech that we remove before anyone even has to report it to us. We've also set the standard in our industry by publishing regular transparency reports so people can continue to hold us accountable for our progress.
Facebook created an independent oversight board to moderate content. Its members are independent global experts empowered to make content-related decisions. Mid-August, Facebook also issued a statement on its new policy. And 2 weeks later, on the last day of August 2020, Facebook suspended 13 Facebook accounts and 2 pages of a Russian influence operation that posted as an independent news outlet.
The operation targeted the United States, the United Kingdom, Algeria, and countries across the Middle East. There's a lot of focus on the fact that one of the places they targeted is the United States, and that's particularly important in the lead up to the election.
Moscow denied those allegations, saying it does not interfere in the domestic politics of other countries.
And here's a look at some other stories doing the rounds across the globe in World at a Glance. Belarusians continue to protest. Hundreds of students boycotted the start of the school year in Belarus on 1st of September and marched in protest. Police detained at least 14 students and a Belarus State University professor. Belarusian President Lukashenko is battling a wave of protests and strikes since claiming victory in an election last month that his opponents say was rigged. Chorus is growing within Europe supporting theories of attempts to poison Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny. German Chancellor Merkel said that Navalny was the victim of a murder attempt using the nerve agent Novichok and demanded an explanation by Russia. Following her statement, the EU said the bloc could only slap new sanctions after a probe revealed who was responsible for what Germany says was a deliberate poisoning with the toxic nerve agent. Japanese Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga has declared that he would run for the leadership of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, a race he is heavily favoured to win to become the next Prime Minister of Japan. Suga, a longtime aide to outgoing Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, said he was entering the race to avoid a political vacuum during the pandemic. Abe announced his decision to resign last week, citing poor health. Angara Appaji and Govinda Patnaik Dugivalasa have been alleged as global terrorists by Pakistan. They, along with 2 more Indian nationals, are accused of forming Indian terror syndicate in Afghanistan. The US, UK, France, Germany and Belgium on 2nd September decided to block Pakistan's move to list them as global terrorists under the UN Security Council 1267 Sanctions Committee. California's oldest state park will stay closed for at least a year more to protect the people. The state is cautious in its approach to reopening the forested enclave burnt badly in the recent wildfire. On 2nd September, California Governor Gavin Newsom, after surveying the fire damage, said that the state has made real progress in the fight against the blazes. Governor Newsom had earlier declared a statewide emergency because of the fires. That's all in this edition of World Today. On the other side of the week, I'll bring to you yet another in-depth analysis of stories that impact us all. But before I go, on a lighter, or should I say, royal note, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry signed a mega multi-year Netflix deal to produce TV shows, films, children's shows, carving a career path away from the front line of the royal family. Away from royal duties, but not from family, the couple spent the 23rd death anniversary of Princess Diana planting her favorite flower at an LA preschool in her memory. Take a look.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.